Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are the Gambling Databases Research Team.
That's right. And we're a group dedicated to delivering, really in-depth analyses of the global iGaming landscape.
We go way beyond the headlines. In each of our country-specific reports, we explore everything from local regulations and taxation to player experience and emerging trends.
Exactly. The goal is to give you a clear, data-driven understanding of how the gambling industry actually works within a specific market. What makes it unique?
And today, we are dissecting a market that, on paper, should be an absolute superstar, Guyana.
Oh, yeah.
You see the headlines everywhere. Massive oil discoveries, incredible economic growth. I mean, we're talking about a nominal GDP that's hit about $15 billion in 2025 with a consistent 8% annual growth rate.
You'd think it was a gold rush.
You would. Logically, the iGaming sector should be booming right alongside it. It sounds like the perfect emerging market.
And that narrative, while, technically true for the broader economy, is just profoundly misleading for iGaming.
How so?
The sources we analyze present one of the biggest contradictions we've seen all year. On one hand, you have this promising emerging market story.
Right.
But our final data-driven verdict for any new operator was, well, it was an unambiguous, all caps, avoid completely.
Wow. Okay, that is a massive red flag. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that, to really get into that critical risk warning. Why does an economy growing at 8% a year translate to a market that's, well, fundamentally broken for new operators?
It all starts, and frankly, it ends with the regulatory environment. It is, for lack of a better term, a legal black hole.
A black hole?
Guyana is a land-based licensed market, and it's trying to manage a 21st century digital industry with laws that were written when Teddy Roosevelt was president.
They're not serious. You mean the foundation is the Gambling Prevention Act of 1902?
That's the one. Precisely. Now, it had some amendments in 2012, sure, but its core structure is just. It's archaic. It creates this confusing hybrid environment where, until 2021, the online space was basically just ignored.
So they're trying to catch up then. What is actually regulated right now? What's officially legal online?
The steps they've taken are minimal, and they're very, very specific. As of 2021, the government only moved to legalize two things online.
Okay.
Online sports betting and government lotteries. That's it. That is the entire legal extent of the Guyanese online gambling market.
That is a gigantic gap. So online casino, poker, the things that generate most of the digital revenue,
Yeah.
they're all just in a void.
Completely unregulated, yes. And here is the critical risk, for any operator who might be listening.
Okay.
There is no local licensing framework for online casino or poker. You cannot apply for a license. It doesn't exist.
So everyone operating there now is offshore.
Every single one. Curacao, Malta, you name it. And they are all operating in a legal gray zone with absolutely zero local protection.
I have to ask, though, if the law hasn't been updated yet, why should operators worry? Aren't they just, waiting for the new rules to come out?
And that is the trap. The sources are very clear that the government is actively developing comprehensive online regulations right now.
Which creates what you call the pending legislation threat.
Exactly. What is simply unregulated today could become explicitly criminal overnight the second those new laws are passed.
And if they do criminalize that activity, what are the consequences? This is where it goes from a financial risk to something much more personal.
Absolutely. And the existing enforcement mechanisms are terrifyingly specific. This is why executives really need to pay attention.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about fines, sure, exceeding 1 million Guyanese dollars. But crucially, the law includes potential imprisonment
Jail time.
from 6 months up to 2 years. This is a very high personal risk for the directors and executives of these companies. It's a true catch-22. You can't get a license, but you risk prison for operating without one.
That is an infinitely high cost of entry. But let's just, for a second, assume an operator is willing to take that insane regulatory risk. That 8% GDP growth has to justify it somehow, right?
And this is where the second part of the paradox comes in, the biggest disconnect. You have to completely ignore the oil money GDP figures and look at the actual addressable market.
Which is?
Catastrophically small.
Okay, give us the numbers. Puncture the economic balloon for us.
Right. So the total population of Guyana is only about 791,000 people.
For perspective, that's like a medium-sized European city.
Exactly. Now, apply the current online gambling penetration rate, which our sources estimate is a minuscule 0.4%,
Less than half of 1%.
meaning the total active measurable online player base in the entire country is only about 3,200 active players.
3,200. That is stunning. You could
Yeah.
fit the country's entire active online gambling population into a small concert hall.
You could.
So how much are those 3,200 people even generating?
The total estimated iGaming market revenue for 2025, and this includes everything, legal sports betting, offshore casino, land-based, is only 40 million US dollars.
40 million. For everyone. That's a tiny pool for any serious operator to fight over.
And what they spend individually is tiny too.
Yeah.
The average revenue per user, the ARPU, is only about 50 US dollars annually.
$50. Wow. When you compare that to other markets, I mean, even emerging ones can be $150, $200.
Well, yeah, with mature markets are several hundred. So yeah, $50 ARPU it's a fatal metric for profitability.
So here's where it gets really interesting for me. You have this tiny $40 million market pool. You're competing against giants like Bet365 for a sliver of it. What does it actually cost a new operator to even try?
And that's what completely undermines the business case. The sources calculate a minimum total investment just to get in the door is between $790,000 and $1.1 million. And get this, that includes needing $500,000 just in working capital for the first year.
So you risk $1 million for a chance to fight for a handful of players in a $40 million market.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing the tax structure doesn't help.
It makes it so much worse. The standard corporate income tax is already a brutal 40% on profits.
40%.
But when we talk gambling, we look at GGR, gross gaming revenue, the money the operator keeps after paying out winnings.
Right.
And the universal expectation is that when those new regulations arrive, GGR taxes are going to be added on top of that 40%. We think the total effective tax rate could easily push past 50, maybe even 60%.
Unbelievable. So you invest $1 million, you fight for 3,200 customers, and then you lose 60% of any profit you might scrape together. How long would it even take to get a return on that investment?
The estimate is 48 to 72 months, so 4 to 6 years. And that's if you're lucky.
That's the best case scenario.
It is, because you have to remember, the big international sportsbooks already have over 70% of the digital market share. New guys are fighting for the scraps of an already tiny pie. The economics are, and I quote, completely unviable.
Sounds like a guaranteed way to lose your shirt. Let's pivot to the customer. Is there any silver lining here? Any market strengths that suggest it might be worth the wait?
There are a few definite long-term strengths, yes. First, and this is great for players, there is no tax on their gambling winnings.
That's a big draw for consumers.
Yeah.
A huge positive.
For sure. And demographically, the market is very young. The median age is just 27. 55% of the whole population is under 35. This is a digitally native generation just waiting for the infrastructure to catch up.
And the language is English, right? So no major localization costs.
Exactly. It removes a huge barrier that operators face in, say, Latin America.
But those strengths are being choked by infrastructure problems right now.
Oh.
If you have a young English-speaking population, what's stopping them from getting online and playing?
Two things: connectivity and payments. Internet penetration is still only around 50%.
Half the country.
Right. And while smartphone use is high, near 80%, the reliability of that internet is, well, it varies. The sources specifically mention frequent outages in rural areas. That's a nightmare for live betting.
Unreliable internet absolutely kills live betting, which is what everyone wants. So what about payments? How are they funding their accounts?
That's the second hurdle. Cash is still king. Bank account penetration is low outside of the cities, so players are using mobile money solutions.
Like Digicel Money or GTT Pay.
Precisely. Any operator that doesn't offer easy cash-to-digital top-ups through those specific mobile wallets is going to fail. You won't even reach the 3,200 players that are there.
So that tiny player base is mostly on mobile, on shaky internet, betting on what?
It's all about sports betting,
Yeah.
specifically football and cricket. They want mobile, they want live features, and they like integrated social platforms.
Any other trends?
One positive one, actually. Despite the lack of local rules, a lot of the offshore operators are already using responsible gambling measures. Age verification, self-exclusion. They're clearly anticipating the strict regulations that are on the way.
Okay, let's tie this all together. We started with this huge paradox.
Mhm.
A high-growth, oil-rich economy versus a tiny, legally dangerous, and technically challenged market. What is the final word?
The final assessment from our source material is conclusive. Guyana gets an overall market attractiveness rating of 5.1 out of 10.
5.1. Barely a pass,
It's highly volatile, it's extremely complex, and it is fundamentally a regulatory black hole that's just masquerading as a growth opportunity.
which leads us right back to that verdict. Avoid completely,
Hmm.
for most anyway.
Absolutely. If you are a new startup or even an established operator looking for ROI in the near term, this market is it's mathematically impossible. And if your main product is online casino, you have zero legal pass and you face explicit criminal risk.
So who should even consider this? Is there an exception to the rule?
There are maybe two groups who could even think about it. First, the existing international giants who can just add Guyana as a marginal territory with almost zero extra cost.
It's just found money for them.
Right, they can absorb the risk. The second group would be maybe a very patient sports betting specialist, someone willing to operate offshore, accept that criminal risk for 5 or more years, and just wait.
A huge gamble on the future.
A massive gamble that the population will grow, internet will improve, and the regulations will finally stabilize.
Which puts an incredible amount of risk on the operator. It brings us to the final provocative thought for you, the listener. If you were an existing operator, would you risk criminal penalties, including actual imprisonment, for a potential share of only $40 million?
It's a risk versus reward calculation that, when you look at the data, almost universally fails.
This was an incredibly clear, deep dive into the harsh reality behind those optimistic headlines in Guyana. Thank you for guiding us through the numbers and that legal minefield.
It's always a pleasure to decode the reality behind the marketing hype.
For the full text of this and all of our other country reports, you can visit our website at gamblingdatabases.com. Join us next time as we dive into another global market.